You might be a brain flying around in space imagining reality. I tell you all about the fascinating hypothesis of Boltzmann brains in this video, so stay tuned, and if you like it, please give the video a thumbs up and write a comment for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you, friends, and welcome. Imagine you had a gigantic box filled with atoms, the tiny building blocks that make up all solid, liquid, or gaseous substances. You shake this box, this will most likely result in the atoms simply arranging themselves into a disorderly chaos. But the more often you shake the box, the more likely it is that the atoms will arrange themselves into a sensible shape. If you shake the box an infinite number of times, then every conceivable possibility will occur at some point. At some point, the atoms will arrange themselves into a speculoos cookie, for example, because this is also only made up of atoms. The only relevant thing is the correct arrangement. Yummy atoms. If the box is big enough, then even our universe could simply be the random arrangement of atoms in an even larger structure, because that would also be factually verifiable. If an incredible number of atoms arrange themselves just right, then you get our universe. The Austrian physicist Ludwig Boltzmann also had this idea. Boltzmann imagined that our universe could just be a statistical fluctuation in a much larger eternal cosmos governed by chance, and if you think about it, that's not so unlikely because the universe is a bit strange, isn't it? Billions of galaxies full of planets and stars, a planet called Earth has even produced biological entities that are able to consciously perceive the universe and think about it. You could say that the cosmic status quo that we perceive, the entire universe, and especially us here, is an absolutely statistically improbable state of emergency. So what seems more improbable, that this has come about normally in a 13.8 billion year cosmological development since the Big Bang, or that this is a fluctuation, a random arrangement of atoms. Depending on how big the space outside the universe is, it had to happen like this at some point. A great many atoms were floating around in the vast void and in infinity until one day they randomly arranged themselves to form our universe. The mind blow level is already higher than it should be. Okay, so you could argue that it's more likely that the universe is just a random fluctuation than that it's actually real. Let's take this idea further. But be careful, it's going to get even more twisted. So even more likely than an entire universe being randomly composed of atoms is that it is composed of a single entity that imagines this universe. And such an entity is called a Boltzmann brain. Let me put it a little more clearly. It is much more likely than that our universe was created out of nothing with the Big Bang, and that this is all real. That this is just a thought of a consciousness that has randomly put itself together by randomly arranging atoms. You and your perception of the cosmos your entire life could just be the thought of a brain that was composed of random atoms in the cosmos for a fraction of a second. After all, our entire perception of the world, our thoughts and memories are ultimately just a certain arrangement of atoms in our brain. So you are a dreaming brain buzzing around in the cosmos. Perhaps some of you will no doubt be very skeptical now and say,
I don't want to be a Boltzmann brain.
Then listen to what Marcel from the wonderful Techtastisch channel has to say about it.
Think again about the gigantic box filled with atoms from the beginning. If it's big enough and contains enough atoms, then it's only a matter of time before these atoms come together to form a functioning brain, which of course also thinks, and even these impressions that my brain is receiving right now in this reality here simply trigger reactions in my brain, wanting to ensure that I perceive what I'm seeing. And if this same reaction were not triggered by my sensory organs, but by something else, then I would be experiencing exactly the same thing. Compare this to dreams, which also feel damn real to most people. So it shouldn't be difficult to imagine yourself in the situation of a Boltzmann brain. As long as these reactions take place, we are likely to perceive it that way. So what is more likely now? That I formed this huge universe, and we are now sitting here on this small planet and asking ourselves these questions? Or that somewhere in this universe, a Boltzmann brain has just been created that has exactly these thoughts? The latter is physically much simpler, and is also mathematically more probable, because here on this planet, you are just one of 8 billion human brains, and the cosmos is huge. The potential number of Boltzmann brains should therefore be significantly higher than the number of supposedly existing brains on this planet. So am I one of these 8 billion human brains that is really holding this camera in my hand? Or just a Boltzmann brain floating in space and thinking, I'm holding this camera in my hand? I don't know, but I am. Would I really have to resign myself to being a brain floating around in the cosmos? Perhaps not. Because the idea of the Boltzmann brain leads to a paradoxical situation when thought through to the end. And Tim will now explain it to you again.
Let's say I'm a Boltzmann brain. I'm just imagining reality, but then I'm also just imagining the laws of nature, physics, random mathematics, and thermodynamics. But these are the very laws whose application led me to the conviction that I am a Boltzmann brain. That is paradoxical. If I assume that I'm not a Boltzmann brain, then probability tells me that I must be a Boltzmann brain after all. But if I am, then I must immediately reject the arguments that led me to this conclusion, because I am only imagining them. Wow, old Swede, my head is spinning. Let us know what you think of the Boltzmann brain hypothesis. Could there be something to it, or is it complete nonsense? We would be very interested in your opinion. But now, we'd rather turn our attention to a more relaxing topic to calm our buzzing skulls, or rather our buzzing Boltzmann brains. You'll find the next exciting topic at the top right, be sure to check it out. And if you liked this video, I'd be delighted if your Boltzmann brain subscribed to the channel and activated the bell. Otherwise, I'd say see you in the next video. Take care, friends.